52.
You got one each.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, it was super easy actually to just bring them on.
Have to keep that in mind.
Yeah. Okay, so we're live on YouTube as well. So hi to everyone watching on YouTube, and I'll pass it over to Russ and let you guys have some water cooler. So have a good show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
you.
Daphne.
We are recording to the cloud. Make sure. Yeah, why not? Yeah, looks like we are. Okay, you should be good to go.
Thank you, Doc.
My pleasure.
Hey, Mike.
Oh, hi.
How much fun is this?
Getting here is half the battle.
Oh my God, you made it.
You got nothing else to do in the afternoon.
Like, we don't want to get lost from going from the kitchen into the office that we have in our homes anymore.
So welcome to our audience members who joined us on Zoom and also via YouTube Live. We're going to start in about 7 minutes, but just do a little bit of bantering until we get there.
Yeah.
I hear the hotel in Boston's not very good.
I heard that too. I am concerned.
Are you staying there?
Yeah.
Well, I'm next door, so you guys can just come over to my place.
Yeah, you might have a whole bunch of us bunking in with you.
Yeah. So Carrie and I are flying down to Boston to present at a conference Thursday, but the hotel, I guess, is under construction and is really chaotic right now.
Yeah, I think those sorts of things would have been nice to know when we were booking the hotel, because I wouldn't have booked there at all. Like I totally would have gone somewhere
They
else.
sent an email last week saying there was some minor construction, but it doesn't sound like it's minor.
Yeah, I wasn't getting the sense that it was minor either, which really does have me concerned about what we're walking into.
Oh, man.
Oh well, I guess tomorrow we'll know. We'll figure it all out.
Cool.
Russ, you know that Boston Celtics is starting their series on Thursday, so if you got nothing better to do.
Thursday, I thought they were playing Wednesday night.
I think it's the first game. I think it's Thursday. I'm not sure, but maybe I'm.
We can look that up.
Oh,
So something to do in Boston, just to say.
it's the baseball that's Wednesday. Maybe the basketball's Thursday. You could be right.
Yeah, because I went to look to see if we had time to go to Fenway, and the game is at 1:35 tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, it's an afternoon game. If it was evening, we would have been fine, right?
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, Celtics play the Mavericks June 6th at 8:30 p.m.
Okay. How you been, Mike? Haven't seen you for a while.
No, I think I've been pretty well, keeping going.
That's
Although it was
good.
very, very quiet for most of last year, which was good.
Do they have people having you review the pension administrator's report? Is that the idea?
No, I've stuck basically to marriage breakdown rather than pension reviews. And I just got another criminal law case, and some of my old work on insurance promises.
That makes it interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it's a class action lawsuit, so it's been in the running for about 10 years.
Isn't that crazy just how long some of these things run for? It boggles my mind all the time. Like just how long these things can be sitting in court, that people are either living in limbo or just under the stress of the process. Like I wonder if you ever just get used to it as this is the new normal.
Some things do take long, but they're not like the Jarndyce versus Jarndyce that was written about many years ago.
How long did it take?
It lasted until the lawyer's fees ate up the estate.
Oh,
And
and
then
then
he
somebody
walked away,
decided it
right?
would be good to settle?
Do you remember? It was one of the 1850s novels. I just can't remember which one it was. Was it Dickens?
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's Jarndyce versus Jarndyce.
Wow. That's really sad that it gets to that state for some people.
Yeah.
And that
It was-
you never want to see that. I honestly, you just don't.
I had a case, the guy came to me, it'd been settled. You remember on CTV News, they had that reporter called Goldhawk, who would
Yes.
advocate for, various consumers. So he looks at his TV and his former wife is on there with Goldhawk, and he had gotten her this big pension that was originally denied, but she never disclosed it in her divorce settlement. And there she is on TV talking about this pension. So that ended up dragging 6 years of litigation into 10, which is
Oh my gosh.
crazy, these poor families going through this litigation.
Well,
It's
that's
just, I just
crazy.
checked.
It's just not okay.
I just checked that Jarndyce versus Jarndyce came from Bleak House by Charles Dickens.
Oh, okay.
And it was based on an actual case that was a little less extreme.
Crazy.
Just a little less extreme.
Mhm.
Well, half
Oh
the
my goodness.
stories we go through, if you to make a movie or write a book, nobody'd believe it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I've actually said for a long time that we should write a book. Obviously change the names to protect people and everything else, but just some of the things I think that we've experienced, or even some of the things that we've heard, have it been just so outlandish or just so funny. Like there's no other way to describe it other than just pure humor. I always thought, you know what, we should just all just get together and write a book. Because
Yeah.
I think it would be quite entertaining. If not for the general public, it'd be really entertaining for anybody that's in this field, that's for
Mhm.
sure.
Well, it's top of the hour, 5 o'clock. It's officially after hours. So I want to welcome our audience on Zoom and also welcome our audience on YouTube Live. I really appreciate everybody attending tonight. Today's topic is how to protect your pension during a divorce. Just a few quick housekeeping matters. You can use the Q&A feature to submit your questions throughout our presentation tonight. We're going to try to answer as many questions as we can. We love hearing audience questions. This series is meant to provide very general information only. It's not intended to be construed as legal advice. If you have a question that needs legal advice or you need some guidance, you can book a consultation to receive tailored advice or contact a lawyer in your community. Stay tuned. At the end of tonight's program, we'll include a link where you can get a free 20-minute consultations with one of the lawyers at our firm. But you'll need that link to contact our intake to secure that appointment. But we'll get to that at the end. But first, let's introduce our esteemed speakers tonight, volunteering their time and sharing their information. We have Carrie Heinzl, is the founder of Fairmore Financial Solutions. They offer independent, fact-based financial analytics and settlement insights to individuals going through separation and divorce. Carrie is also president of the Ontario Association of Collaborative Professionals. So I guess we need to salute you, Carrie. Is that right?
Absolutely. All hail the chief.
Yeah. And we have Golan, one of our family lawyers, very seasoned mediator, over 25 years of legal experience, called to the bar in Israel in 1996 and then in Ontario in 2003. extensive experience representing clients at all levels of court. And we're really excited to have Mike Kavanagh with us tonight, Master's in Science and Mathematics from the University of Toronto, established Kavanagh Management Consulting in 1998. He's prepared over 3,500 pension reports since 2003, has been qualified as an expert witness in Ontario for marriage breakdown and personal injuries claims. So we're super excited to have you with us here tonight. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lots to cover, so we're going to make a start. First of all, our first topic, I'll just take a brief overview because a lot of these things we're going to be talking about in depth a little bit later tonight. So understanding your pension rights and how they may affect your divorce. So here's some points to consider. First, you're going to want to understand what type of pension that you have. We're going to talk about the different types of pensions that are out there. You're going to want to think about the implications of sharing your pension. So the lawyers call that division of family law property. It's shared pursuant to the provisions of Ontario's Family Law Act. Sometimes there's offsetting where we'll move the pension around, or one spouse may keep the pension and transfer his or her interest in the home to the other spouse. We'll talk about that a little bit tonight. We're going to want to think about the pension administrators. They have a legislated formula that they apply that the Ontario government has set out. That's going to create something called a family law value. That may be different than the number that you may receive in terms of a monthly pension statement from your employer. So we're going to talk about the family law value. And we're going to talk about the importance of seeking legal advice. Do you want to make an informed decision in terms of what your pension is? There's survivors benefits which come into play. We'll talk about that a little bit tonight. And most importantly, after you make your resolution or your settlement, you're going to want to update your pension administrator with the new details and probably change some beneficiaries. And we're going to talk about that tonight. So that's sort of a big overview of what you should need to know. But documentation, gather all relevant paperwork and documentation related to your pension. So Golan, what do we need to share with our audience tonight?
Thank you, Russ, for having me on this panel. It's definitely one of the topics that have become more and more complicated over the years. Even when a government was trying to make it, to simplify it and kind of introduce it into the Family Law Act with the pension valuation that is kind of a built-in with some administrations of pension plans, it nevertheless remain necessary to ensure that you have the records, especially when you're looking at valuing, or at least critique the valuation of the administration when they start doing their math and whatnot. And as you know, as I remember from Mike asking me all the details that he needs for the actuary report, then I would suggest to people to simply have their statement of pensions that they get. I think they get that yearly, if I'm not mistaken. For most administration plan, they provide you with a statement which include the membership, the commencement of the plan, your current beneficiaries. Sometimes if they actually list your current beneficiaries of your pension, who has the survivor benefit plan, etc. All of this information is normally available to members on a regular basis, but they have to keep it handy and available when it's called for. And that information becomes valuable for an actuary report, or later on with the family law, filling all the forms and all the details that are necessary to make sure that you speed up the process and you're not delaying the process, and everything is in place. So yes, so in terms of just keeping these records available, it's always a good idea to have that and ensure that you have it in a place where you can retrieve it when necessary.
Yeah, and I imagine your lawyer or your or Mike or somebody like that is going to have a list of documents. Like I know Carrie's got a list that she always asks for. So you'll probably get a checklist from any legal professional that you consult. So that takes us, the pension is often the biggest or the second biggest asset people have next to their homes. So you want to get this right. So my suggestion tonight is you want to consult with a family lawyer who practices family law, who works with division of pensions on a regular basis. A lot of times I get asked by people, how do I find a good family lawyer? Well, do research and ask for referrals of people who've been through the process. Check their qualifications, read reviews and testimonials. I know lots of people before they eat at a restaurant will take a look at the Google reviews. Most purchases I make on Amazon, I look at the Google review or the Amazon reviews, even at Costco, to see what kind of rating they get. Lawyers are no different. So previous clients will talk about good experiences and bad experience that they've had with their lawyers. You're going to want to book an initial consultation and meet with that lawyer, see if you have a relationship with that lawyer and you can communicate with that lawyer. Ultimately, the lawyers can provide you with strategy and a plan and information about your pension. Most importantly, he's going to inform you in terms of, he or she will inform you in terms of what your legal rights and obligations are. That's going to help you make an informed decision in terms of what you're going to do with this big asset. And they're going to make sure there's a fair and proper outcome. There may be tax or notional disposition costs that may attach to your pension that could be $50,000 or $100,000. It's significant. So you want to make sure that you get that right. And finally, a lawyer is going to help you draft and enter into a binding agreement, binding on your former spouse, but also binding on the pension administrator, so they're going to know to divide the pension properly. So lots of reasons why you should seek legal help. We're encouraging you to do so. This is a big asset. You want to get it right. But what's the difference between the benefit plans? You have defined contribution, hybrid. What are we talking about, Mike? What kind of pensions are out there and what are the different types that are available?
Hi, Russ. The basic types of, two basic types of pension are called defined contribution pensions, and the other are defined benefit pensions. A defined contribution, a pension plan really is a fund held by an employer or his representative in order to provide retirement income for employees generally after age 65, but it could be earlier or later. The defined contribution pension plan means that the employer is going to put money into some sort of a notional bank account. And when you retire, they take the total amount of money which they have accumulated for you and buy a pension. They might be buying it from a life insurance company, or they might be funding it from another fund in another way. But as with all pensions, it is intended to be a retirement vehicle. For a defined benefit pension, that the goal is to provide a set amount of benefit for each individual, such that they know how much pension they will get as they get close to retirement. For a defined contribution, all they know is that they have a fund of money held by the employer. They don't know what sort of a pension it will be, or if they want an indexed pension, will it be, how much lower would it be than a fixed level pension? And the defined benefit pension removes a lot of uncertainty for the employees as to the level of income that they will receive for the rest of their lives once it starts. There is a third type of pension called a hybrid pension. The hybrid pension is a mix of the two types. And one of the possibilities that I know of is a pension in which you have a defined defined benefit amount set up is going to be accumulated, and then there is a lower limit, a lower amount of defined benefit. I said that defined contribution, and then the supplements defined benefit. But if you retire at an inopportune time, your defined contribution fund might not be sufficient to produce a large enough amount of income, but the defined benefit keeps a floor. You're not going to get less than that pension that comes from the defined benefit. Those are the three basic types of pensions, and they're this common status that I see in my work as an actuary. The final state is where you're receiving a pension, and then in that you have a tremendous number of options. You might have a pension payable to you for your own life, fixed amount. It's going to be $1,000 a year or $1,000 a month every year. You get indexed pensions where the pension sets out at $1,000 a month and then might grow up regularly in sync with the consumer price index or some variation of that. Again, I saw one that said we will produce a pension that increases 2% per year, but we won't bother about any variation due to the consumer price index. Now, the question asked is, how do we value a pension? For defined contribution pensions, the value of the pension is simply, for a defined contribution, is simply the amount of money that you have in the fund on the date of separation. And it should be available basically from your employer or from your pension administrator easily. The second part that you need to know, any pension that is being valued has got to be separated between the total pension and the pension that is subject to the family law. It's called the family law value, and it is the part of the pension value that's attributed to the marriage period. And that's the part that gets to be split with the former partner in the family law. You might have $1 million pension and only about a $50,000 marital value, but only the $50,000 shows up when you're talking about dividing the assets at divorce or on separation. Now, for a defined benefit pension or part of a hybrid pension, it must be valued using an expectation of life, that is actuarial assumptions about the future interest rates, the life expectancy or probability of death, and the parts of that are particular to you, particulars that are special to you, such as your age, your years of service, your intended retirement age, and a number of other parameters which are asked for by the actuary when they're doing their evaluation. However, for Ontario registered plans, which is probably covering most of you, your plan administrator is required to provide a value of the family law pension, value of the pension on request, not every day, but occasionally. And they can either spouse in the separation can obtain the statement of family law.
Maybe I can just ask Golan to jump in on this one.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything about valuing pensions, Golan, in addition to
Uh,
what? So,
First, the first thing I would say is that after mentioning how complex the issue is, and hearing Mike, I rest my case. So that's the reason that we using actuaries to do the work. That's the reason that Mike's work is so valuable, because it is not necessarily what is showing, especially in most plans are now with the family law value that is being provided by the plan administrator. And then obviously they're not necessarily computing the income tax consequences that would be attached to that pension member, and therefore that's the importance of valuating the pensions. Firstly, it's needed for a part of the in the process of separation in a marriage, and I stress that this is attached to a marriage because equalization applies to married couple, and therefore the valuation of that asset is required. You can either say, okay, I'm taking it from the administration plan, I'll pay them the $600 or whatnot, and they'll provide me with the number. And that's one topic you may be content with, but and others normally would like to have the actuary to look at that calculations and take into account other factors such as the tax consequences that may follow, and especially when we're looking at other scenarios other than dividing the pension in kind. So it may be as part of I'll keep the pension, you take them home, etc. All these kind of exchanges and creative ideas that we come up with to equalize the assets. All of these factors of tax consequences and the like are affecting the overall values and the give and take in the process. So that's the reason that it's important to have the evaluation done. That's the reason what we engage professionals such as Mike. You cannot compare an LLB to a mathematical science degree of what Mike has gone through. I don't think very many of us would be able to do that, or Carrie, I'm sure in that aspect would do the same. But that's my take on the importance of evaluating it professionally. Yeah.
And LLB, we're talking about a law degree, but a couple of things. We're taking a very complicated subject and breaking it down as if we're going to talk to our neighbor about it or a family member. So we're trying to make it simple, but these are complicated assets. Family law value, if you go see a lawyer, what they're going to tell you is important dates are your date of marriage and your date of separation. That's the period that we're going to look at in terms of what did the pension grow or what were the contributions during that period. So when Mike says $1 million pension may be worth $50,000, there's a good chance that partner or spouse brought that pension into the marriage and is getting a deduction for that. And then growth after the date of separation is also excluded. So when you see a lawyer, these are the dates, and this is the language we're going to be talking about. One other thing I want to add is we are now seeing common law couples being successful in making claims against pensions, where traditionally it was only married couples pursuant to the Family Law Act. So unmarried couples are making trust claims to these assets with some success, which is another thing that you're going to want to talk to your lawyer about. So now that we kind of laid the foundation and the concrete's still drying, equitable distribution. So that's a fancy way of saying, how are we going to share? So what are the options for dividing the pension up with your spouse? I'm going to give that one to you, Carrie, but do you want to jump in here, Mike?
Good. I was going to say that I keep talking too much, but one of the parts that I did not get to was the fact that when you're looking at the family law value that's provided by the administrator or by an actuary, you must realize that this is going to be matched up with other assets, such as bank accounts. And a bank account, you can take money out, whatever it says. For a pension, you can't. You have to make an adjustment to reduce the value that is available for separation by deducting a tax liability, a contingent, they call it a contingent tax liability. But that's another area where the actuary might well be involved, because this involves projecting up to the retirement era for each individual in concern.
Yeah.
But so I just thought I wanted to
And
get that
depending
in.
on your income bracket, your tax liabilities
Yep.
could be different. And, that could be a swing of, 20, 30 points. So it's significant. But Carrie, how do we share these complicated assets? What can we help the public understand?
Yeah, I sharing the assets is always interesting. I just want to, just before I jump into that, the one thing that I did also want to say is that we also have a difference between a federal pension, how it's valued, than how we are valuing an Ontario pension. So you need to know that as you're going to get them valued. Ontario pensions really super easy. We're going to fill out the forms as provided through the Financial Services Regulatory Authority of Ontario. So FSRA for short. We're going to do it that way. We're going to look at something different. Most likely, we're going to go and contact Mike and say, hey, we have a federal pension for you to look at. Can you do a valuation for us on that? So I did just want to put that out there.
And that's because
When we're looking at
the Family Law Act is provincial legislation, right? Federal
Correct.
is different
Correct.
jurisdiction. I think we're making this more complicated than we're trying to. So,
Yeah,
but it's an important distinction. And I think it goes to the fact that you need experts like you have on the panel tonight to help understand that you're coming up with the correct result.
Yeah. So, when we're looking at dividing up that pension, we're also going to be looking at, are they still an active member of the pension plan? Meaning, are they still working and still contributing to that pension plan on a monthly or biweekly basis? Or have they retired and they are now what's considered in pay, meaning they are receiving payments from that plan? It's going to change how we divide that pension. So for example, if somebody is still actively working, and we're going to find out what that family law value is, so that area of growth from the time you got married to the time that you separated, we're going to look at that, and it's going to go on what's called a net family property statement. That value will go in there, whatever value comes back as the family law value. We won't see anything such as a survivor benefit or those sorts of things. We get a family law value. And I do want to talk about the importance of having to read those forms properly when you receive them, because you get a family law value, and right underneath it, it says amount available. So what it's saying is, when it has that amount available, it means the amount available that if you need to use your pension to pay an equalization payment, you can use up to this value, but you can't go over the value. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what you owe your spouse. It's just saying if you need to use that as part of your equalization payment, you can. So that's a part of it. And it's a really important thing to know, because if we have a pension and it's worth $1 million and it says 500,000 is available for transfer, it doesn't mean that's what you owe the other person. So your equalization payment could be $250,000, but you're not going to give them that full value. You're going to transfer $250,000 maybe from that pension if you don't have other resources. Or if your equalization is $750,000, you can only transfer up to the $500,000 within the pension, and you have to find the other money from somewhere else. So that's an important thing. If the pension is in pay, it becomes a little bit different. So we can divide it at source, meaning wherever your administrator is. So if you're a teacher and you can then divide at source and say, hey, pension administrator, I'm going to take half of my pay that you send me every single month, and you're going to send the other half, or whatever value is agreed upon is going to go to my former spouse. And this is what that looks like. Or we can keep the pension whole as well. It all depends on what your settlement options are and what's going to work best for your family. And I think it's really important that everybody understands this is about your family. So often we hear somebody say, my person at work, they weren't allowed to keep their pension. They had to give it to their former spouse. It totally destroyed them in their retirement. I think it's really important for everybody to understand how people actually go through and come up with their settlements. It's very individualized and it's very specific to your family. So lots of options for you, and you can always discuss what's best in those options.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is when we say equalization, what Carrie's saying, this is the final way we're going to share the property. So, you know, somebody's got $2 million in assets, somebody has 1 million, we're going to equalize that $1 million if that's acquired during the course of the marriage. So really important. So let's talk about that offsetting and alternatives. What are some of the options you can generate, Carrie? This is sort of your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I love getting creative on how we do this. So what this is really talking about is going back to equalization payment. How do we make that payment? What does it look like? So somebody may have a pension and their interest is that I really want to keep my pension intact. I don't want to share it. How do I keep that intact? The other person may be wanting to keep the matrimonial home. And when we move that matrimonial home all over to the other person's side of the ledger, we may find out that the equity within the home is very close to what their portion of sharing would be in the pension, and we can lower that value. So it's a nice way that we can keep things. It's about understanding as a team, what is the goal and interest of each person? So sometimes people will look at it and they'll say, you know, I don't want to share the pensions. We've decided that we're not going to divide our pensions. We're just going to keep them. We want it removed from the net family property statement. And my advice on that is that only do that if you know what the values of the pension are. You cannot give away something when you don't know what you're giving away. Very often what we will have are people that'll come into our office and say, we've already agreed we're not sharing our pensions and we're not having them valued. And somebody may have been a teacher for 30 years and they have one pension and the other person may be with a carpenters union and may have been doing that for 15 years. The values of those pensions is going to be vastly different. And you cannot give away what you don't know. Make an informed decision, get them valued. If you decide after that that you still want to not have them as part of it, that's okay, but you're making an informed decision. So always get your pensions valued and make sure you know what you're actually giving up.
We're kind of leaning into you heavily here, Carrie. One more before I let you off the hot seat.
Yeah.
What's a financial professional? That's what you are, but let's explain what that role is. And what are the advantages of engaging somebody like you or even Mike to assist?
So we're doing everything about the money that has to do with a couple going through separation and divorce. We're gonna take sides out of this and we're completely neutral. The idea being is that we have an unbiased view and the numbers are the numbers. So what we want to do is we want to present something, because part of my role is I find out what the goals and interests are of both of my clients. I really want to know that, and it's part of my intake session. So what we do from that is once I get everybody's information, we will fill out all of those forms that need to be done for your pension valuation, so you don't need to worry about it. We'll also say, hey, we need to contact Mike to do a pension valuation for us. We need the actuary. Or sometimes I've got information in where it's come from, say, a teacher's pension plan, which is an Ontario pension. I'll get that family law value, but their financials are really complicated. So they have pensions, they have rental homes, they have lots of investments. I may still contact Mike and say, listen, they have all of this going on. What is going to be an appropriate tax rate that we should be using, given all the information that we have, to apply as that contingent or retirement asset discount rate? So just because it's an Ontario plan or something like that, we may still go to somebody like Mike, to an actuary, to say, hey, we need a little bit more assistance because things are interesting on this file. There are about 47 different financial designations out there. If anybody tells you that they know all of them, run away, because you can't be an expert in 47 different things.
Except
So
except if Mike is telling you, then it's okay.
yeah, then if Mike's telling you, it's okay, but other than that, don't listen. The idea being that I will make sure that when we're on a file, I'll also highlight things where I'm saying, we need to go a step further. We need an actuary, we need a tax expert, we need a corporate counsel. I'm going to point out those things. We need a business valuator. Those are the things that we're going to point out so that we can be as accurate as we can. Keeping in mind some things we're taking a very educated guess at. For example, the value of somebody's home. If somebody wants to keep it, the only way to know some things is just sell it. So if we want to keep things in, let's keep those goals and interests at the forefront.
And that's this whole idea of unknown knowns, right?
Yeah.
Depending on your family lawyer, they might not be picking up on these issues, but a financial planner or an expert like Mike, you certainly can identify and see these blind spots. But in terms of tax implications, what are some of the consequences, Golan, that the public and our clients need to be mindful of during a divorce when it comes to the pension?
This is another complex area because we try to give legal advice and not tax advice. And this is where the use of the actuary, the use of tax experts is essential. It's really directly connected to what Carrie just said in terms of calculating the equalization. The same way that we try to value an RRSP, for example. We know that there is going to be a tax liability when you draw that money for your pension goals, or just when you want to use that money, because there is already a deferral of the tax. When you deposited the money, there's going to be a tax consequence when you pull the money out. Same goes with a pension. But the complicated part of a pension is that it's projecting, it's speculating, it's not knowing what the future holds in the sense of what your income is going to be when you retire at 65. You may be getting divorced now at 45. There's another 20 years of contribution that you're going to make. Maybe other jobs you're going to have in the future. All of that is going to affect you mentioned that the tax bracket. It's going to affect what is the actual net value of that asset. The same way that we try to do every other asset in the equation when we try to, and again, we try not to make this complex and confuse the audience, but it is a complex area. And unfortunately, it's just, that's the reason that we're using experts to do the work and let us know exactly what is the net value of this asset. When it comes to pension specifically, we need somebody like Mike or Carrie to do the math and give us the tax implication, so we can actually compute that into our calculation when we determine how much is owed and how much is to be paid from one to the other. So that's the idea in general, and the importance of the tax consequences is very determinative of the issues.
Mike, you want to jump in here?
One of the words that Golan happened to use was you're speculating about the future. In fact, we don't speculate, we make an assumption that it's going to follow this path. And we should say what that assumption is. And if that's
because that's the way I feel.
But two different experts may use two different assumptions and come with two different results.
That's correct.
We did get an audience question coming in about overpaying somebody's equalization payment. You pay whatever you want. We're just asking you to make an informed decision and know what the deal is.
Absolutely.
People make bad deals all the time. So
Russ,
go-
sorry, can I just jump in 1 second on
Please,
the
yeah.
tax part? Is one of the things I want people to understand is that if somebody has $1 million pension and the other person only has $200,000 worth of retirement assets, their tax liability is not the same. They have different tax liabilities. The person with $1 million pension has a much higher tax liability than the person that only has about 200,000 in their retirement assets. So you want to make sure that when you're doing that, somebody's not using just a blanket 20% or a blanket 15% as a contingent tax liability. You actually should be finding out what that liability is because they're going to be different.
Yeah, good point. All right, so let's shift gears. We've we're giving you a flavor of the tax issue. We're not solving anything here, but we want to just inform you so you can recognize this is something you're going to want to talk to with a professional and get more information. But designations, beneficiary designations, what is one and what does our audience need to know, Golan? I'll flip that over to you.
So this is like, we have to look at a pension just like we look at estate planning, right? Like we want to make sure that our loved ones are looked after our death, whether a member who has a pension dies before his retirement or after retirement, that makes a difference. Every plan, just the same as a bank account and the same as RRSP account, where you're getting the forms and they ask you, who the beneficiary of the plan would be. This is where you're thinking about your the security of your loved ones. So you want to either have your spouse there, or you want to have your children there, and all of that is going to be recorded in the plan administration. The importance is to know the timing of making changes. What's the effect of the changes? There is a concept of a survivor, a pension benefit, that is a concept where you're taking less from your pension in order to preserve a certain amount for your spouse or for your children or for your estate. And that designation is basically in writing in a form that is designated by the pension plan, and you fill in the information, and you have to keep kind of reviewing that to see that this is your plan. Your plan has not changed over the years. The same way that you would look at the will, the same way that you would look at your life insurance benefits. If you're taking life insurance, you're doing the same thing. You're gonna do the same thing here for a pension plan. You're gonna make a plan for your loved ones to make sure that they receive your pension benefits if you die before you even receive, before your retirement or after retirement. All of that requires attention, and definitely something to look at separation, especially because this is where your intention may change, whether you want your ex-spouse to still receive and whether you can actually do that. That's not always a possibility.
Carrie, you want to get on this discussion at all, or Mike?
Yeah, I do think it's really important that people understand that there's a difference between a survivor benefit and a beneficiary. They're not necessarily one and the same. So if somebody's pension is in pay, meaning they're receiving payments from their pension plan, they will have designated at that time a survivor. So it's usually your spouse. Actually, 99.9% it is your spouse, unless there's some way it can't be your spouse that I don't know about. Always got to leave that little bit there. So you would designate your spouse as the survivor. So that survivor benefit cannot be changed. So even in the case of separation and divorce, you can't change your survivor benefit. It is locked in. So then, but what happens is that there's also a beneficiary designation. So you may have where you've named your spouse as your survivor, but your children are your beneficiaries. So what it would happen is that if you pass and you're in pay, then your spouse starts receiving their survivor benefit. And then if they pass, if there's residuals remaining within the pension plan, that would go to your beneficiaries. So you can change your beneficiaries, but you cannot change your survivor once you are in pay. If you are still working and contributing to your pension, you can change you don't have a survivor yet. You're not in that situation, so you're not going to necessarily designate who that person is at that time. It's when you're deciding, I'm retiring, I've had enough of the rat race, I'm out of here. That's when you're going to designate that survivor.
All right, Mike, you want to get in on any of this?
This has to be considered when you're doing evaluation, possibly, because for survivor benefit, for where there is a spouse, then definitely that belongs to the survivor. It doesn't belong to the plan member, and that's why you get a marital separation of the value for the plan member, and then no marital or premarital allocation for the spousal survivor. But and I'm not sure if every pension, certainly federal pension, the spousal survivorship is locked in after or at retirement. In fact, I don't think it is locked in at retirement automatically. In Ontario, I believe it is locked in.
Okay, good to know. Thanks. All right, so let's talk about long-term financial planning. It's essential, but you want to consider, the impact of pension division on your retirement goals. So I'm going to ask everybody to jump in here. But oftentimes, one of the big impacts is there's going to, you may have planned to retire. Remember, there used to be the Freedom 55. Well, you might not be retiring at 55 anymore. You may not have the income to retire early. So you may be delaying your retirement. You want to set clear retirement goals and lifestyle, but those may change along with your retirement age. Your income sources may change. You're going to want to work with an expert like the financial planners that we have here tonight to create a financial plan, to go through your budgeting and savings investment strategy, help maybe get additional professional advice. And you're going to need to monitor and adjust that plan. So there's going to be some significant long-term consequences to your planning that you may have had during the course of your marriage. The other thing I would suggest is, maybe look into getting some emotional support. A lot of people work for 25, 30 years. This pension becomes their identity. I had a firefighter, and all they were looking for is their retirement and getting that pension. Now that asset's divided and that income is not going to be available. And so, that has a real emotional toll on individuals, and you're going to want to seek maybe the help of a family counselor or another professional to help you manage the emotions that go with that. But Carrie, do you want to jump in on this final point tonight? Then we'll do some Q&A.
Yeah, I think it's really important that when you're going through separation and divorce and you are dividing up your pension, I think it's really important to look at what stage you are in your life. So dividing a pension when you're 35 and still working and have a long years ahead of you and in working, I think it's a little bit different than if you're 57, 60 and you've had that 30 years of service with that pension. It looks a little bit different on how you want to divide it. You're going to feel the division more when you're separating it out when you're 60 than if you're separating it out when you're 35. So getting that advice is really important because it's going to have a bigger impact. The later you are in your life and where you are financially, it's going to have a much bigger impact than if you have a lot of you where you can still be contributing and making it up. Some people that are young don't even feel it. They don't even notice it.
Golan, you want to jump in here, or we can go into some Q&A?
I suggest we'll go to the Q&A and see
Yeah.
what's the interest.
So we talked about this briefly, Mike. When you get involved and start to do your reports, what's some of the documentation that people should expect to make available to you?
Well, generally, a basic piece of paper that I look for is the annual statement that is provided by most pension plans, certainly for all Ontario registered pension plans. And the application for the family law value from from an Ontario pension plan. Other pensions are not required to produce a family law value report. So in that case, we may need to know more about the pension plan, getting documents, the booklets, and annual statements if available. Anything that we may need is something on your a pay stub sometimes helps as well to give some verification to the estimated final average salary or things like that. And then do you have your birth certificate? I don't need to look at it, but I presume that any lawyer who's working with somebody does look at it to make sure that they have the right age and the right date of birth, and therefore the right age for retirement at 65 or CPP benefits. And those are the starting points. And from time to time, I find I need additional information. You might, in some cases, want to get a doctor's letter. If you've been told you're very seriously ill, then it's possible that a doctor might certify that your life expectancy is less than 2 years. And that's a whole different kettle of fish. So those are the key things. And I don't have a specific list except for those basic ones, but
Yeah, that's very helpful. Yeah, that's good to know. Thanks, Mike. Carrie, we just had a reference to CPP credits, Canada Pension Plan credits. We don't get involved with those. They're automatically adjusted by the government. Is that correct? Do you want to talk about that for a moment?
They're not automatically adjusted.
Oh, you have to,
So
good point. Yeah.
you do have to apply. You should do, there is a timeline. Sometimes they'll do it if you're past the timeline. But usually within 3 years of your separation, you should have that done. I tell people, don't wait. If you're gonna divide your CPP credits, make sure that you're doing the application right away as part of all of this. We don't fill them out. We have copies of them. We're happy to send them out to people saying this is what you need to fill out. Only one person needs to fill them out. That is the first thing, just one of you. If both of you have been full-time employees for basically the entirety of your relationship, most likely what's going to happen is there's not going to be really much to divide, and it's the credits that they're dividing. They're not going to say, oh, by the way, we just transferred $50,000 from person A's plan into your plan. It's the amount of credits that they're going to be dealing with. So if you have the same credits, there's nothing to do. If you are a stay-at-home mom, you really want to let them know, and you're going to want to apply for those credits. You do get credits for being a stay-at-home parent, but it's not huge. It's the CRA after all. But you're going to want to do that. You're going to want to make sure that you put that out there, because that is something that you're going to want to see, especially as you get older. You're going to want to see if you guys can both maximize what you're going to get in the way of your CPP benefit.
And there's a limitation period, right?
Absolutely. There's a limitation period for pretty much everything.
So don't
So
wait.
even the pensions, you don't have forever to get that paperwork in. You need to do it within, I think it's 60 days. It has to be in after you finalize your agreement. You cannot wait.
Golan, final question. You, designations and beneficiaries, I assume you need to tell the pension administrator what the new agreement is. They're not going to know, right?
Of course, I mean, they don't expect them to guess. They only have what they can only go by what they have, and it's obviously better to advise the same way that you would advise your bank, the same way that you would advise your life insurance. You would advise your administration plan. They may be sending you their own form to fill in, so they have they have it organized in their system the way that they want. So obviously, advising your administration plan is essential to make sure that things goes according to plan.
Yeah. Well, this has been very helpful tonight. I want to thank Mike, Carrie, and Golan for all their great
Oh.
insight. Thank you for tuning into Family Law Now. Following tonight's presentation, there'll be a brief survey where you can give us comments and make suggestions for future programs. Thank you for sticking around to the end. The consultation code has been put into the chat box, so you can secure a consultation if you want for a free 20-minute meeting with one of our lawyers. The code is Daphne 2024. Daphne was helping us set up tonight. Registration now is open for the next event. Look to the page where you signed up and get signed up if you want to go and learn more. And once again, thank you, everybody. This has been a fantastic session. I've learned a lot, and thank our audience for joining us tonight.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Russ. Always a pleasure, always fun to do. And it's great working with you, Mike, and with you, Golan, as well.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody have a good night. Thank you.
Okay.